All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back here to Kicking It with Knuble. Mike, episode 5. We're back after our first guest appearance with Marty. Went really well. Some really good stories. But now we're back, and hockey's getting close. Flyers start on Friday here today, and we'll kind of see what happens. I know you got a pretty busy weekend coming up with the Caps. But yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, heading back to Washington for like a reunion. Like what's their 50th year as a team? And Flyers I think went through this a couple years ago. They're a couple years behind for whatever, and or later expansion or whatever. So yeah, bringing a bunch of guys back, which would be super fun. So it's good. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of the Flyers, there's definitely some stuff to talk about. We're going into game one, Vancouver. Flyers are going on the Western Canada trip to start the year, and they announced the official roster. Um, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's really not any guys that you didn't really expect. I mean, we kind of talked about this before, Mike. How it's a lot of guys that you kind of can just kind of pin into spots and you kind of have an idea of like who's on the roster, who isn't, kind of thing. So I'll read through it here. For the forwards, you have Bobby Brink, Noah Cates, Sean Couturier, Nick Delorier, Joel Farabee, Tyson Forrester, Morgan Frost, Garnet Hathaway, Travis Konecny, Scott Law, and Jet Luchanko, which is the one we'll talk about here in a minute. Matthew Michkov, Ryan Paling, and Owen Tippett. So nothing really crazy outside of Luchanko. It's pretty much the guys that you expected. As for the defense, Drysdale, Johnson, Ristolainen, Sanheim, Sealer, York, and Zamula, and then the goaltenders Urson and Vidotov. So it's nothing really crazy. But when you look at the offense, you see Jet Luchanko there, who will be the youngest Flyer ever to make his debut. And he's the youngest player in Flyers history to suit up for a game. And then Michkov. So you have both those guys making their debut on Friday night here against the Canucks. It's exciting. I think for me, like I look at it like it's kind of the step in the right direction. And you've mentioned it before. You're trying to get these guys to kind of stay around for 10, 12 years kind of thing. And this is kind of seems like the step, finally the step towards that.
So I guess out of the two young guys, one is predictable in Mishkov, and then the other one was kind of a surprise in Jet Luchenko. So um, you have to give him some credit, right? He certainly, if there was a crack in the door, he really got himself through it. Was it a short term thing? Is it a long term thing? I guess we'll have to see. But I mean, certainly he deserves, a big pat on the back here because he's really kind of made himself, kind of willed himself into a spot, made them keep him. So, he should be super proud of that. It's a big deal. Now to be able to get there and start here is, once again, I get over that, kind of that little honeymoon wears off, when you get through the first couple games of the year here and maybe start to see a trend in the lineup or the way the trend, some things become a little clearer to management on how they want to proceed for the rest of the year. His situation could change or whatever. And Mishkov is, hopefully he gets off to a great start and he's not going anywhere, right? He's going to be here for good. But Jet's certainly one he's going to have to play every night like it's his last here for a little bit to really prove a spot. And so, kind of as a young player, for those you don't know, there are some protections, right? They can keep you in a hotel for like 30 days, right? And sometimes it's you don't play. Sometimes you'll play 9 games in that window. Sometimes you don't. But there's like a little bit of a CBA time period where they can keep you, and that's another thing when you get called up in the office and they say, hey, we want you to get a place. And then that's kind of like another level of making it. And so, maybe he can earn that. He can earn that right here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a good point. And Mike, I think in terms of the hockey side of it too, like you mentioned it a couple episodes ago when Danny Briere also mentioned it in his press conference, like Patrice Bergeron. Like that seems like the thing everybody that a lot of people keep bringing up. Can he stay up the whole season? That's the biggest thing. Is like let's see how he plays in these first few, obviously the first 9 and all that. But do you think there's any chance he could stay up for the full year?
That's it's a good question, and sometimes what would scare me a little bit, and Patrice, Patrice is like a third rounder. He's kind of a goofy skater. He probably wasn't, real pleasant to look at by the eye, like when he was an 18-year-old. So, he dropped down to the third round or second, late second, or whatever he was. Um, Jet is obviously a fantastic skater. So that's not the issue. The part that scares me is the Flyers are a bottom 6 or 7 scoring team. And so I think he's not known as a super like scorer or a super terrific producer, whatever level he's been at. And if
Yeah.
you have a team that is just a high goals for per game, you can kind of hide them in there and kind of blend them in a little bit, and it's not as obvious. So now you get on a team where they don't score a ton, and this is going to be your year to play in junior. Not that, you know, kind of to go to junior and be like a scorer, put up a 60, 70, maybe like an 80 to 100 point season
Yeah.
and really work on that part of your game. And so that's a huge, that would be my only, one of my, I guess negatives of being around the whole year is like, where are you going to work on that scoring? Where's that scoring confidence going to come from? Because this can be super hard to score. Flyers already challenged enough as it is. And then you throw on, it's just super hard as a young player to score. Gets a little harder to get to the front of the net. Your shots aren't going in from 15, 20 feet out. Those have no chance of going in. You really got to be able to stick your nose in there. So, preseason is one thing, and you play with sketchy lineups and kind of, not everybody's going that hard. So then you get to this point in the year, and obviously the pace is going to pick up again, and the seriousness of the games obviously gets very serious, and it gets a little bit harder to find that easy ice around the net. So that would be one of my only kind of trepidations of the year being all around. Like, is how you're going to keep developing the scoring touch on this guy.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a good point, and especially when you look at it, Flyers last year were 27th in the league in goals for, and for Luchanko, who to your point, he put up 74 points last year in 68 games. So like this would have been the year for him to go down there, put up 90,
Yeah,
100 something points. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so it's definitely a fair point. In terms of his usage, it seems like they're gonna pretty much use him. He's gonna play power play. He's gonna play penalty kill. I'm assuming second unit for both. Um, it's interesting, I think, Mike, because I'm not a huge fan right now of the power play units in terms of, and obviously they're going to change, and you're going to see a ton of movement with those. But when you look at the lines, uh, you go Michkov, Couturier, Konechny, like that's pretty solid first line. Tippett, Frost, Forrester, Farabee, Luchanko, Brink, and then Lawton, Paling, Hathaway. So it's definitely a little more improved from last year. There's obviously some spots that are like really new. Obviously, the guys, Michkov and Luchanko. Um, it looks like a pretty good top 12 of guys that can score, and some physical guys too. But in terms of usage and stuff like that, Torch did say that he'll see time on the penalty kill. He's on the second power play unit, so he's going to be kind of used everywhere. And I'm assuming that this is like, obviously this is his 9 game thing, and they'll see after the 9 games kind of what happens here. But for Luchenko, it at least is a good sign that he's kind of getting used everywhere, because I'm at the point now too where you know, obviously we were kind of keen on him not making the team and just kind of be like, there's really no point. But if you are going to see him here and you are going to let him play, and obviously he has earned that too, you might as well use him in every situation you can.
yeah. And I mean, again, that's I just alluded to before about the scoring part of it. It's great to be on a second PP. I get the feeling the first one might take the bulk of ice time, and
Yeah.
but the fact that they think he's worthy of being on there is pretty. That's a pretty special thing too.
Right.
The PK stuff is showing. He showed a pretty good knack for that in the preseason. And so again, like, these young guys, like, to bring them up and put them on a fourth line and play 6 to 8 minutes and really shelter them is not super great for their development. So they are kind of throwing them, right into the water here, right? And so, they are, and I think I said that last week. Like, if you're not going to keep them and be able to play them 13, 15 minutes a night, you're really, really better off just sending them down where he can go, back to junior, play 20 a night, score, and work on his scoring and stuff like that, versus slugging it
Exactly.
out here, losing that scoring edge, and losing some valuable offensive reps. But playing with Bobby Brink, he's certainly an offensive player. and and that's going to help them out a lot too. So there is some finish around them, which is nice, and so
Yeah.
um, get a chance on the PP can do a lot for you. But again, they're certainly not hiding them too much, really, which is
No.
good to see. And so, I mean, you are going to get a pretty good test here, an even better test than you got in the preseason. It's going to be these first handful of games, especially this Western trip, and kind
Yeah.
of see how it shakes out in 3 or 4 games here.
Yeah. And also too, Mike, I do think that sometimes this trip early in the year can help just in terms of like team bonding and all that. And like for Luchanko, like a guy who's coming in, obviously he's played preseason, it's all different lineups and stuff. He's still really young. He can go out on the road with these guys, get to know them, and they can kind of bring him in and things like that too. In terms of Friday's game, uh, the Canucks. Mike, I ended up putting out a tweet on our socials that was our predictions for the game, and then also I put out a poll that was who scores the first goal of the season. As for the predictions, I said Flyers win 3-2 in overtime. First goal of the year is for Michkov. You said Canucks win 4-2 with an empty netter. First goal of the season's Konechny. I think yours is probably closer in terms of the actual game.
Yeah.
As for the poll, 28.6% of people said Michkov, 15.9 said Konechny, 11.1 said Tippett, and then 44.4% just said others. So somebody else outside of those three guys to score the first goal of the year. So uh, I think we had some pretty good predictions.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on yours?
Well, it's kind of all over the board, right? So it's a little
Yeah.
bit of everything, and obviously, 44% of your listeners and people who did the poll feel that it's the field. They're taking the field, right? So, but
Yeah.
and again, this is if I was really good at this stuff, I wouldn't be on this. I'd be in a casino. I wouldn't be on this show right now. I'd be working in a casino and hanging out in Vegas if I was good at
Yeah.
this. But it's yeah, certainly who knows, And then I said, just being out west right away and being on the road, it's hard to come into somebody's, home opener and kind of steal one. It's super hard, kind of the odds are against you. So it's not that it's a guarantee or anything by any means, because I've been open on the road and won games there too. But Vancouver's certainly a interesting place and very I don't know, the Canadian cities, their first home games are a little different. They're not so influenced by high school football or college football getting in the way, or even the NFL so much. Like it's all about the hockey team, even on their opening nights. And so it's they're good. They're tough places to play.
Yeah. No, for sure, and especially too because I think 3 of the 4 games this year are the other team's home openers.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So that doesn't help.
yeah.
And the Flyers haven't necessarily ever really been good on this trip. Let me ask you, do you remember any good moments or good years when you were with the Flyers on that trip?
Well, we did. We did the same thing. We got out there early, went to Whistler. Evidently, the team's up in Whistler.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was '08, right? 2008?
Yeah, yeah, in there, and some coaches like to do some other stuff. They do some team building stuff, or they might set up a project for you just because there's some free time up there and like get you outside a little bit and continue to have guys get to know each other. But I really like this time of year because the Phillies are in the playoffs too, right? So you go to practice and then eat something, and then with a 3-hour time change, it's probably almost time for first pitch. So you get to hang out, you find a sports bar and have some wings or something and just, hang out and kind of make some bets with each other and have some fun like that. And so it's great. It's super quiet. It's pretty quiet town, right? This time of year, the glaciers are still open. There's still people skiing, but they're there midweek. Like it's super quiet and you just practice in their little rink up there, which was kind of fun. And, you're just in that little 1,000-seat arena and, it's kind of like practicing in Voorhees, basically,
Right.
it's probably even a nicer rink in Voorhees, but it's fun to do that. And like you said, and then you get wrapped up in baseball and energy wise too. I like this one at the beginning of the year because it's a daunting trip, and
Yeah.
I guess the players playing the West, they make some of these longer runs more often. When you get used to playing in the East, you're kind of just up and down the coast,
Mhm.
and it's a lot, so you don't go very far. You used to be in your bed at 1 a.m. most mornings and stuff like that, getting home, but. So this one is kind of a nice one to take when the weather's still, you're feeling fresh, right? You're not beat down at all. You're kind of like, all right, I like to get this big trip out of the way while we're fresh and
Right.
there's excitement and stuff like that. So I think it's a super I shouldn't say super. It's a real good time to get out there and number one for hanging around with your buddies, and it's always nice to acclimate to time a little bit because you'll be out there for a bit, and then and two, just getting that trip out of the way when you're fresh and ready to kind of attack the season. I think it's a good one to play earlier in the year.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think too, Mike, with just how, they have been recently too, it seems like unfortunately, like this trip always comes either in the beginning of the season or Christmas time, or vice versa. It's either California to start, and that's because Wells Fargo Center has the Disney on Ice. You probably
Mhm.
remember,
Yep. Yep.
which is for like 2 weeks. It's like the big long thing, and it's part of why I hate the Flyers playing in a multi-purpose arena, but that's a whole different conversation. Um, as for obviously, this trip, if you look in just recent years, um, the last time that they swept this trip, which they haven't done a lot, is 2017-2018 season. So it's been a long time. Obviously, the one year they didn't go because of the COVID year, it was just the East Coast teams. But overall, I'm hoping that they have somewhat of a good start. I think they're going to probably win. For me, I've always looked at this trip as if they can go 500, I'm happy. You know what I mean? It just start the season, get 2 wins. If you can get to overtime, whatever. But for me, I think 500 is probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah, no, that is. It's a pretty fair assessment. Anything better than that is certainly a moral victory. You just don't want to kind of come out of there 0 for, right? And it's
Mhm.
kind of, and then you don't panic so much. It won't, there's still 78 more games to go or whatever, and you got a lot of time. But I think coming out of here, kind of shot out of the cannon, going 2-2. I think you'd be pretty happy with that. 3-1, you're ecstatic, right? Coming home, very happy
Right.
with that. So anything kind of less than that, you're a little bit okay. We got work to do. 1-3 or whatever, you're kind of let's figure out where our holes are, and we got to make some decisions here. And then 0 for 4 might be we really got to make a decision here. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I think getting this one out of the way early, I think it's good. I think start during Christmas, guys are drifting off to kind of thinking about Christmas break a little bit, kind of think, you're either dinged up a little or it's getting kind of, I don't know. I think it fits in personally for me is I would appreciate this trip early on in my personal schedule to get it out of the way.
Right. So let me ask you then. So obviously, you played on the East your whole career, outside of Detroit, really, but they were, obviously kind of dead smack in the middle. Did you always enjoy, like, playing on the East, having that trip? Either, was it always like that, where it was either, like, beginning of the year, or, like, Christmas time, or was it kinda all over the place? Because again, I don't know if, like, the Rangers or Bruins or anyone or even Washington, if they did it similar, where it was, like, the scheduling, like, they had it, like, right at the beginning of the year, or if it was like that, obviously, because playing on the East Coast and all.
Yeah, I just remember it was kind of all over the place, and then Gary Bettman was tinkering with the scheduling, trying to do more like rivalries, try and keep everybody home a little bit more. So maybe he went every other year. And so, at various times, I'm trying to think back like to some of the stuff that pops in my head. It's always kind of rainy there, it's always kind
Yeah.
of, I remember being out there and we were having lunch. I think it was with the Flyers, right? And pop in for lunch somewhere, and there's Bradley Cooper and Jessica Biel having lunch. They were shooting the A
Oh,
team back
wow.
in the day, where it's like kind of like I think it was before he really popped, Bradley before he did Hangover. So,
Mhm.
and he's a Philly guy. I don't think we knew that. We probably should have said something, because he is a Philly guy.
Yeah.
We should have just introduced ourselves.
That's
What the hell?
funny.
But we were sitting there having lunch. So there was always something was going to happen. I had a couple good rookie parties out there too. So you kind of
Mhm.
get some stuff out of the way when you're there. But the ones that were nice were the ones to Southern California and Phoenix, where you build in
Yeah.
that time. Maybe you get to the golf course a bit. Maybe we get out there and guys. For me, I'd grab the schedule as soon as it came out, and I figured out, where you're around Christmas time, because if you had to go home with young kids there, where you are for your All-Star break, and then where these East Coast trips are, and so start thinking about, as soon as you get back to camp, you're kind of like, well, we should be playing golf. Where are we staying? You're already hassling the travel guy. You're hassling, where are we staying out? Where are we staying out in Phoenix? How long are we there? You're trying to get the lowdown on the exact time, and you're like, okay, we're gonna play golf. We're gonna do this, this, and this, and we're going to make sure. So the schedule's gotten a little more compressed, and stuff. But earlier in my career in Detroit, you spent some time out there, and teams would do stuff to kind of brighten the energy too. You stay by the beach or you stay in Marina Del Rey and kind of put up a little bit of traffic, but just for guys to get a little sunshine and all that. So it was always kind of a fun trip, and you felt a little gypped if you kind of just flew in and flew out, real fast in a hurry. You're like, man, I'd like a day or two out there. So
Right.
that was kind of one of the first things I'd look at.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Um, in terms of the game, like obviously, Vancouver, they're, you know, one of the best teams in the league this year, won the division. Um, just in terms of kind of looking at them and their roster, Flyers will play them twice in a week. They'll play them this Friday, and then next Saturday, and then they're done with them for the year. Um, it's funny, the Flyers go there and it's their home opener, and then they come here and it's our home opener, which is
Yeah.
kind of crazy how that opens up. But Canucks again, like they're a good team on paper. They have a lot of high end guys, Pedersen, Besser, and then obviously you have Hughes, Hronek. I think they are a little. I think they're kind of. It's weird for me with Vancouver because I really like Edmonton for the Pacific. I know we talked about that. I feel like the Canucks are probably one of those teams that could definitely be top three in the Pacific again. I think they're obviously really keen on Demko, and if he's healthy, it doesn't look like he'll be healthy to start the year, but at least I think it's good for the Flyers to kind of get them out of the way. They actually had two really good games against them last year. I think one of their best games of the season was actually in Vancouver last year, in my opinion. It was a 4-1 win. They just played really solid, and just overall was a good game. But any obviously you have two guys making their debut, Michkov, Luchanko. Just any thoughts overall, just kind of going into this one Friday?
Yeah, I mean, again, you kind of don't know that, kind of everybody's wondering what they have, right? Probably
Yeah.
wondering what they have, but kind of, you touched on Quinn Hughes, their captain, who's certainly a very exciting player to watch. Kind of is, he's a real, he rolls around the ice pretty good. He gets around the ice and he's pretty electric when he has the puck and he's skating with it. So, and so it seemed to be a good. I mean, they scored, in their top 7 or 8 and scored goals for last year. So they score and they have a decent power play, right? So they have some pretty good parts on their power play. So it's hard to say individually. They don't kind of how I haven't paid that much attention to their lineup or seen kind of how they got out of the gates, but it's again, it's a daunting task. And I mean, at least you do get to reciprocate a little bit. You sit there for a half hour and screws up your pregame stuff, and then you get to have them to your place and screw it up or screw up their pregame, and wait for your home opener. So, yeah, so it's, again, like it's hard to say with everybody just coming out of the gate. I'm giving them, like I say, in my prediction, I gave them a 4-2 win with empty netter just on the basis that they're at home, and at home
Yeah.
might have a little more juice, so, but, who knows, and again, probably, it's again, it's trying to, you're trying to match these power plays. It's because probably the most exciting thing will be like, hey, does this power play look different tonight? And
Yeah.
is this something to be excited about again? And Rockies does great. These guys beat their heads against the wall trying to figure this stuff out too. So obviously, within the organization, they feel he's doing a good job and looking under every rock he can to figure this thing out. So obviously, Michkov's going to be a big help to that. So that'll be good for certain. Was that 5% jump, 10%? Who knows?
Probably.
Yeah.
I hope so, yeah. I mean, and again, like we talked about it, like in the preseason, like you saw a change in just how they how the movement was, and it was just exciting to see. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at too. Like I'm not expecting much, win or lose. I just kind of I honestly just put that they would win because you put loss just to kind of see like what people would say. But um, I'm just more excited just to see how the first couple games kind of go, and then obviously Michkov and Luchanko. Like I'm all for Luchanko now. I'm like I was a little bit against it, but I'm not going to harp on him if it's what I mean. It's for me, it's a good thing that he made the team. You know what I mean? Like it's not one of those things where it's like, well, like you could say like that the Flyers are making the wrong move or something like that. But I feel like if you're able to kind of see what he does and you see how it plays out, then kind of go from there. And really same thing with Michkov. Like it's two guys that it's making their debut and all, and just overall, I just think it's honestly just exciting, like just to see like kind of what's kind of going on. And again, it's just a small taste of the future, really. So
Right. I mean, right. Whether you think it's a mistake or not, you got to root for the guys, right? You want to see them do
exactly.
well,
Yeah.
have success, and it's a nice little storyline. It's something to watch. A little bit of a pop coming into the year, and then again, like there's a plethora of guys that need to prove themselves. In the middle of that
Mhm.
lineup, there's a ton of guys that somebody's got to separate themselves a little bit. Here, and I mean, there are a couple guys that are above other guys, but for me, it feels like there's a bit of a clutter in there. You want to see how Bobby Brink plays here, and Frost. What can they do?
Cates.
Cates, when he gets his chances, when he gets a chance to be in the lineup, what can he do? And then you have Scott Lawton, who's a veteran guy, and what's his role going to be this year? And so there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of internal stuff, and your team that starts October, whatever date they start, the 10th,
11.
Friday,
Yep.
whatever. That team will be much different in December, and December seems to be much different looking than the team in March. So
Yep.
it's whether it's through trades or ups and downs and good play, bad play, who's on the ice at certain times, it'll be different. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I guess the one thing, and I want to make sure that Michkov, like, it's hard. You come in and you got expectations. You're going to try and do too much and try and hang on to the puck too long and cheat too much, and then nobody wants to stifle his creativity, and obviously nobody's going to do that. But you still got to be an NHL player every day, and it's not, can't sell the farm and be cheating and trying to do all that stuff. So getting to know his personality as a player a little bit more, watching, seeing what he reverts to and what he likes to do and how he likes to go about his business will become more and more evident for sure in the next 4 to 5 games.
Yeah. No, 100%. And just again, just making sure that he still has that pop. You know what I mean? Making sure that he can still make plays and all things like that too.
Yep.
It seems like the only really thing for Friday and at least this trip is it seems like Sealer's banged up in that game against Boston, blocked a shot. He's not really injured. I think it's just kind of like swelling kind of thing. So I guess we'll see kind of what happens. He may not. He hasn't really practiced a ton this week. I don't know if he'll play Friday, but he is on the trip, so that's at least encouraging. I know last week we were just talking about that they were healthy and now they get an injury, but nevertheless, it seems like he'll be able to go. Outside of that, should be exciting, Mike. Game 1, finally have something to talk about, and kind of see what happens.
Yeah, and then I guess the last little tip that we haven't touched on are goalies, right? So
Yeah.
they're probably going to get 50-50 split on this trip and
Yeah.
figure out who's going to take the lead, right? And so, Torts made a comment last week saying, it kind of scares the hell out of him, his goaltending situation. I'm like, oh, I get it. That's an interesting way. It's kind of entering the season. You're like, I think I got 2 goalies. I hope I got 2 goalies. And for coaches, they don't like that. They're looking for holes in their team. They want to plug every hole they can. And for the situation that's in front of them, you're going to have to live with this a little bit. You don't have your crystal ball. Maybe you got 2 budding stars here. Maybe you got 1 budding star. Which one is that? Or maybe you have no budding stars. And you're going to head back to the drawing board here pretty quick. But you got goalies in the system that may be able to do the job. But for now, these 2 are running with it. And it's up. I hope one of these guys can really grab it and run with it.
All right, Mike. One last thing here. We just have trivia. You've been able to stump me every time. You've been getting everyone right. This one is. I feel like you're probably gonna get this one, but maybe not. I'm not sure. So your last NHL goal was scored against what team?
My last one?
Yeah, last goal.
Well, my last game was against the Ottawa Senators. So it must have been before that. I'm going to say like Carolina or something like that. Carolina? Boston. It
Yep.
was.
March 30th, 2013. Flyers won 3-1. That was your last goal year. That was your 4th goal of that season, 2012-13.
Only had 4 goals?
That's 4 goals. Yeah.
8.
That was the lockout year. Yep.
Short year, yeah. I remember, I guess that one. I remember one in New Jersey, and I remember kind of a wraparound at Wells Fargo against Carolina. I don't remember that one. And a first one.
I remember that one. That was the Islanders. Because that was my first ever Flyers game that I went to, and you scored.
Oh, all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe I had 8 points. That's what it was. I thought I had 8 goals, but I guess I had 8 points.
I think it was 4 goals.
Very limited minutes.
Might have been 9. Yeah, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Episode 5, Mike, how we feeling?
We're good
Good.
for
Um,
6.
yep. You enjoy Washington. See what happens there throughout the week, and next week we'll kind of see what happens with the Flyers here.
You got it, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all starts. So,
All right. Thanks everybody again for all the support as always. Make sure to check out Kicking with Knuble and all the things that we do, and we'll talk to you guys all again next time. See you guys.
see ya.